Hi everyone, it's Ryan Gray with Electric Brewing Supply again. So today I am touching on a popular question we get when relating to our BCS units. I've been kind of procrastinating or forgetting to do this, and it's about time we do this, especially since we're getting ready to roll some new stuff out where it will be really handy to know about these. So today with the BCS, the most popular question we have is, how do I configure this for remote access so I can, start my brew day before I leave the office, or check up on my fermenters while I'm sitting at the office, or any variant of those said stories. So we're going to try and go over this. It's a little more advanced for those in the computing world, but I'm going to try and simplify as best I can. I definitely want to try it. Part of the reason I want to make sure we get into this is, as our website announced this week, we're getting ready to roll out some cool new products relating to fermentation based off the BCS models. In this case, like the picture we tease, it's a BCS 464 element, or 4 fermenter in this case, control panel. And so the big advantage with BCS over a standard PID panel is for somebody who's managing a remote brewery, and they're doing, you're working a full-time job one place, and you've got your pet project brewery or nano brewery, and you want to be able to manage, keep things moving forward while you're sitting there at lunch at work or something. And so for the computer savvy, for some that's very easy, and for others I'd like to try and simplify this for you all. So obviously, certainly, if there's questions, shoot us an email at contact@eBrewSupply, and I'll do my best to help. But a lot of this is going to be very manufacturer dependent. In fact, in my case, I had to bring in a couple different pieces of equipment to try and do this demo. So I've got some old equipment, I've got some advanced equipment, and I'm going to try and do my best to kind of help everybody along, and I'll try and explain as best I can. When you're talking remote connectivity, there are two very important things to remember. There is secure, which is the equivalent of VPN, or virtual private network. That's the most secure approach you can take with anything relating to remote access to your systems. And then there's unsecure. Unsecure would be you just open a hole in your firewall and you let everybody in. Now, today I'm going to try and do my best to see if I can touch on VPN. The hardware I have turned out to be a little too old. It doesn't have a lot of the features of modern routers, but it'll be falling in line with some of the similar stuff that you'd pick up from your cable provider, since we all know they're so good at providing cutting edge stuff. So I'm going to try and hopefully it'll give you a good base. I'll throw a few tips in as far as what are better practices if I can. Because there's certainly better stuff out there. That makes it a lot easier. The big thing we're going to start today first, though, is I'm going to show you a quick tutorial on what's called port forwarding. I don't recommend this route method. It's not secure. You're leaving the door open. It opens up challenges with the BCS unit in the form of you've got a BCS unit that you either need to rely on its own authorization system, or you just need to pray for some luck, I guess, and hope that nobody finds your stuff. So I'm not a big fan of it. I can tell you right now, you'll for the most part you won't have too many problems, but it'll provide the service you want. It's just there's at a cost. So the first demonstration I'm going to give you is what's called port forwarding. With BCS and port forwarding, all you're basically doing is you're taking advantage of the fact that when you point your web browser at home to your BCS unit, you're just pointing it to an address, and it opens up and away you go. And we're going to do the same thing here, but we got to do it. We got to put a couple crutches in place that help you along and make your life a little easier. The first thing you're going to want to look to do is determine how your internet service is set up. 99% of the time you're going to be using what is called dynamic internet IP protocol, which is your internet address is randomly assigned to you, and you get a new one every couple days. So there are tools to address for that. For those that are paying a premium, and you'll know who you are, because, well, you have to A, stipulate it, and B, it's not cheap to do. It can run you $15 a month minimum, depending on your provider. Those with static IP addresses, you'll have your address, and it's the same thing. If it's static, it's the same thing day in and day out. So what I typically recommend is A, save your $10 or $15 a month unless you need it. And B, there are services out there that are supported by most routers nowadays. The only free service that I recommend currently is one that has been around as long as Dynamic DNS, which is my favorite. But Dynamic went to a $40 a year plan, so it's not exactly free anymore. If you've got $40 a year, I'd recommend this company over others. There's more support for their products. But again, $40 is $40. So we're going to jump over here to a company called Know.ip. It is equivalent in their performance, maybe a little, it's a smaller company, but still equivalent in their performance, and I'll happily use them as well. But the big selling point is they do have a free plan. For most users, their free plan will be ample. You've got 3 host names. Odds are you're going to use 1. So that's adequate. So what you'll do is come into Know.ip here. You'll set up an account, set up your free account. You're going to register what is basically a free subdomain. That domain is basically you sit there and say, hey, I want to be ebrewsupply.knowip.com or ebrew.knowip.com or some variant of knowip.com or any various, if they've got additional subdomain or additional domains that they'll offer. So you'll create this free subdomain and register it. So once you've created that, you'll go into your router. In this case, I'm using a very old ASUS router that I had handy laying in the closet. So you'll go into your router, and on your settings, you're going to find, and most routers nowadays will have this, what's called DDNS or Dynamic DNS service. And most of them will have a service that supports Dynamic DNS, din.org, which is the one I first went over. And they might have some additional ones. DNS-O-Matic, I've used them before. They'll have a list of them. But in this case, you'll have Know.ip. You'll enter in your host name, you'll enter in your username, and your passkey. And away you go. You'll set that up. Now, every time your IP address for your internet connection changes, it'll update the router, and you'll have your domain of ebrewsupply.dindns or knowip.com. That's probably the easiest part to understand, but it could have challenges depending on your router and your modems. It just depends on what you're using for your internet router. I typically don't recommend sticking with your Comcast or Charter or Time Warner issued modems, just because by relying on them, you're actually allowing them to have access to your network. But that's my overprotective IT side of me. So we're going to move forward here. So the next step would be, okay, so I've got I've got a domain, and now I've got my BCS unit on that network. So what we will do is implement what is called port forwarding services. So again, in this case, it's under the WAN umbrella. There's a tab here called port forwarding. So what we will create is a port forwarding rule. And here's where, if you follow what the website says, it's a little dated, but it's still accurate. You do not want to use port 80. Port 80 is the standard port for all your website activity. So therefore, if you just put port 80, anytime somebody tries to hijack your subdomain or your domain name or your IP address, they're going to get your BCS unit. So this is where you want to put a random port, but port that you will remember. So say we're going to go port 900 today. Sounds like a good number. Let's do it. Port 900. So we're going to put port 900. We're going to point that port at our BCS unit. In this case, the BCS is locked in at 192.168.1.2. So we'll plug that in there. Boom. And we're going to tell it we want port 80 because that is the port on the BCS unit. This doesn't change. Do not do anything on the BCS to change this. In fact, don't even set a static IP on your BCS because that will create problems down the road for you if anything changes. So we create that. Obviously, there's techniques to make things easier with IPs, but once you start using it, it's pretty consistent. You can keep it right here, especially if you leave it on all day. So we'll go ahead and just go click add, and we're going to apply that. So now we've got a port forwarding, and it's set up. It's currently rebooting the router. And so the way I'm set up in our shop here for this demonstration, I'm a network within a network here. So we're gonna do. I should be able to show you the next step here pretty quick once this is done rebooting. But basically, we're gonna come in and we're gonna point our browser at the router from the outside point. We are currently actually connected to two networks, so we're gonna wait for this to do its thing. So I'm gonna pause. Okay, so now we've rebooted the server. The router's been rebooted. Now we're back here at the home page. So once it's rebooted, we can sit here and point. I'm gonna copy this address, but normally what you do is you take your dynamic DNS domain, and we're gonna plug it in here and point our way to our BCS. So in a roundabout way, I've created what you would have done, what you would do via the internet. I would point my domain and then :900, and we'll pull up our BCS unit. When you go to test this in your home, if you're testing it in the office, very often that dynamic DNS is going to work. You're going to have to go home to do it, or even easier, just take your cell phone out, make sure it's not on Wi-Fi, and punch in that domain in your cell phone's browser. Make sure you're good to go. So that'll come up with this. Downside, anybody can pull it up, and anybody can screw with your BCS unit. So you don't want to really be leaving this openly out there, especially if you've got a nice Oktoberfest fermenting at 30 degrees, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and goes click, and now we're sitting at 70. So not our favorite option. There is secure options. You can use authentication on the BCS, but again, it's not as secure as other security options available. So that's where we're going to move to now. The next step in security is to go with what is called VPN, or virtual private network. So when we come into our BCS unit here, or our router, we can come in and we look at our router. Many of them nowadays, especially Asus, Netgear, Linksys, a lot of your name brands will have a VPN server option available. The power users have mandated it, therefore it is now pretty much a standard option on most modern routers. In this case, this router is about 6 or 7 years old, so the technology that they're offering is low end, but it's still ample enough to do the job. This option is called what's called PPTP server. It's very easy to implement, very inexpensive to implement. Not as secure. It's actually been hacked already, it's not hacked so much as its code is known, so it can be easily broken into. There are other services such as OpenVPN is what I would recommend. That's what I use. That's what I strictly implement wherever we take over. So OpenVPN also has the advantage of it has iPhone and iOS apps. So I'll try and see if we can do a demo of the OpenVPN on another video, and so you guys can see it in action. We're in the process, actually, as we speak, of implementing OpenVPN with iOS and BCS for a fermentation control system down the street in a commercial brewery. So we'll probably, when we get that done, we'll probably come back to this subject and we'll show it off and demonstrate it and show you what you can do. But in the moment, for PPTP, it's very easy to set up. Like I said, turn it on, click yes. On this case, on the Asus, you just click yes. It's very simple. You create a username and a password, and you add it and hit apply, and we just wait for the system to reboot, and that's about the extent of the router side. Within Windows, it gets just about as easily. So within Windows, we're going to come in and we're going to go Open Network and Sharing, Neighborhood, and we're going to add a new connection, and we're going to create a VPN, connect to a workplace VPN. Very simple. We're going to create a new connection. We're going to use our internet connection, and in this case, I'm going to punch in that IP address of the modem there. We're going to say VPN demo, and we'll hit OK, create. So now, when I point and click at VPN demo, we're going to connect, and that bad boy will connect there. First time usually takes a little longer as the system finds and does its thing, but it ultimately will make the connection. So took a little longer, again, first time, so not quite sure why it does take longer on the first try, but it does. But we're now connected, and so now when I type in fact, I'm going to do this real quick just to demonstrate it. We're going to disconnect from the wireless. So now when I type in that IP address, the internal IP address, not the external, but the internal, when we type it, we'll get the BCS unit. Now I'm doing this over the VPN connection. I'm talking to it. I'm not talking to it from outside. Or through the firewall. So this is more secure. By connecting to the VPN, nobody can take access. Only you have access, and then therefore, there's no passwords required on the BCS itself. This is the preferred method. It's obviously significantly more secure. Authorization is encrypted, unlike the other, and so it's just more advantageous. Can you do it with every modem or router out there? It's hard to say. Most modern equipment offers it. You can also talk to your service provider and see if they provide the VPN service as well. I hope they don't charge you too much for it, but it's a possibility that they would, I'm sure, certainly charge a fee for it. So there's your two options. I highly recommend, if you can do it, the VPN. PPTP is better than nothing, but at the same token, if you can do it, if your router has it built in, the better choice is what's called OpenVPN. And I guess it's not .com, it's actually .org. But OpenVPN would be my recommendation if you can. Like I said, it has an iOS app as well as an Android app, so you have the advantage. You can take advantage of your tablets to do the secure activities and have the convenience of tablet convenience. So, and in some cases, isn't that what we want? Is a little bit of convenience, I suppose. So, I hope that helps give you guys a good base to start from. Like I said, we're going to try and follow up. I am going to try and follow up a little bit more with this, give you guys a little more support on it. Seeing as, especially since we're rolling out fermentation controls, and as the more I use the VPNs, the more I love to kind of highlight them. But port forwarding, definitely, if you can avoid it, please do. The moment you go to port forwarding, you're just asking for. It's too risky, I guess, in today's world and in today's environment. So definitely try for VPN. Most name brand routers will offer some form of VPN. So if you can, stick with Linksys, Asus, Netgear. Wow, lots of names. Ingenious. There's a long. It's a fairly good list of name brands that should support a lot of the OpenVPN, PPTP, a lot of these, dynamic DNS, a lot of these services. But the key is you want to make sure you have a dynamic DNS account or no IP account. Take your pick. Obviously, no IP is free, so big plus there. And then you want to put some sort of VPN in place to make sure that nobody else can look in on what you're up to. as much as you can, as much as possible anyway. The best deterrent is, the best offense is a good defense. So do it. Take your time. Certainly, if you have questions, email me at contact@ebrewsupply.com. I'll try my best to help you out. No guarantees, sorry. But I do have a pretty comprehensive understanding of a lot of this, and we do a lot more of it every day. So, and within maybe the next couple of weeks, we'll try and roll out some recommendations on best choices for these applications. I'll do start doing a little research for everybody. But hope that helps. I'll try and notate some things down in the next couple of weeks up on learn.ebrewsupply.com for everybody. But in the meanwhile, hope that helped you, and we'll talk to you guys again soon, I hope.